Hey, how's it going? Today is 5th of November, Tuesday, and we're gonna be taking a look at the market and where we can find some of these opportunities, right? Today's video might be very controversial. We will try to use logic and trying to understand at first what's happening. Perhaps there's a lot of articles that we're gonna be taking a look at, and there will be a lot of controversial information in those articles, and we're gonna be trying to see what people are doing to address this kind of information, the way how information has been presented. We will begin by setting things up by taking a look at an example of what's happening in the UK. From there, we're going to be taking a look at some of the actions that some of the business leaders are taking to address this imbalance, the way how information will be presented. And from there, we're going to be taking a look at some of the projects, something that's happening, as well as we're going to close today's video by taking a look at one of the potential opportunities for people to engage, right? For this article, we won't be delving too much into detail, but that will be just an example of what we're going to be talking about in today's video. That will be UK mobilizes further finances to lower cost of borrowing for Kenya. Well, it's something that was published today, most likely this morning. While that would be important, I thought we can touch on. If Kenya is looking for liquidity when it comes to borrowing and cost of borrowing, recently we were taking a look at a lot of protests happening, and I think it's IMF increasing measures and changing a lot of policies, or putting a lot of pressure to change policies when it comes to Kenya. How Kenya will be raising taxes. Perhaps some or very similar measures were taking in UK when it comes to taxes, and what we were taking a look at yesterday. I believe we were taking a look at taxes. The tax raises perhaps is something that Kenya is doing. So I don't know if it's good, it's bad, but I thought when it comes to data, I thought we can take a look at the example, right? When it comes to trade and European Union and how many states there are and how big European Union is right now, that would be potentially 27 member states and 450 million people. So that's market size, 450 million. So that's a market that UK previously was selling a lot of goods to. So this is what UK, due to being part of single market, UK freely could sell to this market. It will affect every businesses most likely, including people who operate, including myself most likely, right? This is how big of the market, 450 million people, right? From there, I thought we can touch on the before Brexit and some of the data that's available, that most likely how much of the goods UK was selling to you. So if UK was selling about 43% and or 51% products and services, right? Large percentage, 43, 51, it comes to close as half of all the trade. It's just under the half of the trade was one of the closest partners of single market, and how big of that market was, right? From there we can progress to, and let's try to understand for UK small businesses. Small businesses most likely gonna be most affected, since it might be very competitive for those businesses. So which numbers come to somewhere around half of those businesses would be very hard to compete to, not longer being a part of single market. Not there's gonna be a lot of barriers. UK made this decision, by the way, to enter into those barriers, right? Perhaps there was a lot of things there, but we were gonna delve deeper into that, and from there we can progress. And or let's take a look at, so if 450 million of size of the market, one of the closest market that the UK just moments ago was able to trade before Brexit, and now to order to trade to that single market, there might be some barriers in place. So how much of the effect that might have of trade relationships and what is something that might be a tariff, all those kind of things. So when it comes to economy, UK's economy, and how many times UK's economy have folded Those numbers, data that's been presented right now would be about it's having folded. Economic activity perhaps fallen by 1 or 2%. This is the data that most likely has been shared. So I don't think that data is accurate. I believe that data is different. It's way different. But anyway, let's take a look at who's presenting some of that information for your case public, right? Let's take a look at some of the articles. It's something that was published 4 hours ago. That would be BBC. That would be UK's national broadcaster. Chair warns over public services broadcasting future. Then it comes to perhaps information and the way how that information will be presented. At least some people are taking notice. I haven't read this article, but I won't gonna delve deeper. I believe there's a lot of information that was changed. Perhaps those people, I do understand what they're trying to achieve, which is great. Perhaps they would consider replacing some of the staff. Example of that can be something that US is doing, right? That would be LA Times senior editor quits after billionaire owner blocks paper from endorsing Kamala Harris as owner speaks out, right? So perhaps without being biased and or supporting any within US, there's a different perhaps system when it comes to politics and the way how information would be presented. But I think that information and know where to begin when it comes to building solid foundation. That would be unbiased information, data, facts, figures, right? And from there, people would be more informed when it comes to making decisions of what's happening. It just if the people would be able to handle what's really happening. Some people might have said, but why would some of those it's funded by the public money, right? So if someone like BBC is funded by public money, why would BBC or other organizations, news organizations, would build narrative, and later they would need to carry on building a narrative which doesn't reflect what's really happening. So that's I believe that can be something that's misleading. But anyway, let's progress and let's take a look at the next articles, right? Again, another example that would be a big step backwards for Australia. That would be, I don't think it's step backwards. I think that Australia should consider how to build its own capabilities and all, perhaps when it comes to more competitive offers, right? And we can take a look at other governments and how much other governments would pay for such a contract. The price of some of these contracts when it comes to a military satellite project with Lockheed Martin. Perhaps just an example of what's happening when it comes to the structure of these contracts. That will be Boeing strike and workers back 38% pay rise. So this is how much prices for a lot of services are increasing, right? It can go up to 30%. It's different companies, but if we were to break down, this seems that a lot of those companies working together. If we were to break down some of those contracts, F-35 fighter jet contract, and if we were to break down this contract into percentage, how much of different governments and where components are being sourced from, so that would be breaking down percentage wise. So mainly one company would do entire contract, but it might outsource some of these operations to other companies, right? Including most likely, but we haven't done it yet on the entire program when it comes to Lockheed Martin and satellites. We haven't done it yet, but perhaps we can do it at some point. And how much of that would be outsourced to other companies based in US, including Boeing, right? But if Australia is considering sourcing best contract, perhaps for value for money, there might be some other governments available out there, right? uh, I do know other missions and other companies who are taking a lot of satellites into space. but most likely it would be better if I wouldn't promote them, I guess. But if companies that we already have mentioned will be able to match contract when it comes to solving exactly the same problem for perhaps the same price or very similar price, I believe that Australia will come back to negotiation table. Once that's been said, we can take a look at world's largest helicopter museum, and that most likely needs volunteers. Perhaps we can reach out to this museum and see if we can engage with the team. Perhaps this organization might be interested in more attention and or development of some of the new projects perhaps, or if they're only storing some of the hardware, if they're only doing storing, the least we can do is bring more attention to some of the activities that they're doing. Volunteers, perhaps if there might be some apprentice, perhaps there might be some opportunities when it comes to learning more about helicopters and how they work, right? Let's close that. Thanks for watching. See you next one.